This story tells of a young man named Asura who holds fast to the principle of his late mother that every good deed will bring goodness and evil deeds will be punished. Therefore, Asura always makes time to do good every day, even if only once. Being a good person does not mean that goodness will always be received. Asura is an example. The young man was often bullied by several bullies, but he kept smiling because he believed that those who do evil will be punished by heaven. One day, when Asura was about to go somewhere, he saw a shop with an old man guarding the shop. The old man offered Asura a key, and the key could be used to open a door, namely, the door to hell. Asura, a junior high school student, always holds fast to the principles of his late mother to do good. In fact, the young man has a keychain with a carved quote that reads, "One good deed a day." Asura also understands and notices that in the world, in the environment where he lives, there are so many bad deeds that occur every day, such as someone throwing cigarette butts on the street, someone who doesn't obey traffic signs, and even cruel acts such as murder. Asura observes while commenting on these bad deeds in his mind and believes that every bad deed will definitely get a sanction, a punishment from God. Asura was raised to be a good boy. He never hesitates to lend a helping hand to those in need. For example, when he was about to go to school and saw an old woman carrying a bag that looked so heavy, Asura would come to her and help with all his sincerity. Even though he was so kind, it didn't make Asura free from the bad actions of others towards him. At school, Asura was the target of bullying by a group of students. Asura was often beaten up by bullies, but he still tried to maintain his smile, which then made the bullies even happier, torturing Asura. There was a man who was the most cruel in torturing his targets. The young man even had the heart to destroy insects as beautiful as butterflies, breaking them apart and separating each part without the slightest pity. The young man was named Semitani. Semitani tortured Asura with his full strength. Asura looked so tortured, but continued to widen his smile. One punch from Semitani could send Asura flying in the air. The difference in their bodies and strength was too great that even Asura never tried to fight back. Semitani beat Asura without showing the slightest expression, as if he was not satisfied with venting his power on Asura. After that, Semitani and two others left, leaving Asura, who was still curled up in pain. Asura was very hard to maintain his smile that day. When Asura returned home with a cheerful expression, only his grandmother was there. His grandmother welcomed his grandson home while busy preparing dinner in the kitchen. Asura went to the family altar to greet his late mother. In front of his mother's photo, Asura recounted his daily life, especially the acts of kindness he had done, all told there. Asura still remembered his late mother's advice when he was little. Someone who does evil will be punished by heaven, while those who do good will be rewarded with goodness as well. Asura was asked by his late mother to always do good. At Asura's residence, they also raised a very tame and spoiled pet dog. The dog was named Padre. Asura loved his only pet very much. Not only as a pet, Padre was also always a place for Asura to tell stories. That day, after feeding Padre, Asura told him about Semitani and his friends, who were still doing bad things. Asura seemed to be trying to believe that the three bullies would receive severe punishment from heaven. Because of that belief, Asura felt sorry for the fate of the three people. Thinking about it seemed to make Asura smile quite cheerfully, but then he realized that such an attitude was not polite to do. Before becoming the target of Semitani's bullying, Asura had already warned Semitani and his two friends that bullying others was not a good thing. This happened on their first day of the second year of school. It seems that Semitani and his two friends were in the same class as their bullying victim from the previous year. They openly bullied a student they nicknamed Onion Head because his haircut resembled an onion. No one stopped them, even when Onion Head became a punching bag for the three of them. The other students chose to ignore it. When someone was about to report it, another student advised him to keep quiet because the onion-headed boy was the target of bullying because he was the one who reported the bullying, and the three bullies had seniors who were backing him. As a result, the young man who wanted to report it gave up his intention again. However, when no one dared to take action, that's when Asura appeared calmly and reprimanded him. Asura told the three people that they should not commit bad deed because anyone who did would definitely be punished by God. The three bullies were also advised to do good deeds in return, and that this good deed would produce good repercussions for those involved. The scene shocked the class at Asura's courage to reprimand him, but the perpetrator's response was actually disturbing. Semitani appeared with 2 pieces of lizard legs and immediately fed the petite young man the 2 pieces of lizard legs he had brought. Semitani even ordered Asura to chew it. The memory was a bitter memory for Asura, but it did not stop him from doing good. Asura had even warned the naughty students several times without getting tired of reminding them, but none of them stopped doing bad things. There was even a time when Asura was pranked by placing a dead chicken in Asura's desk drawer. It was a terrible memory for Asura. Asura knew that it didn't matter if the bullies would regret their actions later. Asura was quite curious about what kind of punishment heaven would give to the 3 bullies. From inside, the grandmother shouted for Asura to inform the young man that dinner was ready. Asura rushed inside to eat dinner with his grandmother. With a cheerful expression on his face, the grandmother said that dinner was ready, and the menu that she served that day was a hamburger steak. But in fact, what was served on the plate was a toilet brush. Not only on Asura's plate, but also on the grandmother's own plate. The grandmother even started to bite it with her chopsticks and tried to be stopped by Asura, but the young man was scolded by the grandmother. The grandmother seemed to have mistaken Asura for her late husband. Finally, that day, Asura did not eat and ended up deciding to buy food outside. Asura went out to get some food and got half price on Ajirai. He was sure it was a reward for his good deeds that day. Suddenly, while passing through a dark, narrow alley, Asura accidentally saw an old man sitting on an object that said the oldest gate of hell. Asura, who had previously passed through the alley, returned to check. Asura was surprised. What an old stall was doing in a dark, narrow alley. The old man was quite surprised when he found out that Asura could see him and his shop. It seemed it had been a long time since the last time the old man and his owner's shop had received customers. His efforts to change the location seemed not to have been in vain. The old man seemed excited. He spoke at length, guessing that Asura had been through some hard times. Otherwise, Asura wouldn't have been able to see the shop. The old man was very sure that Asura had lived a life worthy of being in hell. He also offered something that he said was good to the young man. The old man offered a key, not just any key. The old man explained that if Asura could see his shop, then he was sure there was someone Asura wanted to send to hell. The key offered by the old man would open the gates to hell, so Asura could push that person down into hell. How to use the key was also very easy. Just plug in the key into the head of the person who wanted to be sent to hell, then turn the key, and that way a gate would appear and pull the person down into hell. Asura looked confused when he heard the old man's explanation. Not because he didn't believe it, but because Asura's family circumstances meant he didn't have any money to exchange for the key. The old man smiled and replied that he didn't need any money and that the key would be given to Asura for free. With a rather suspicious expression, the old man said that he didn't need anything from Asura in return. Asura remained silent. The old man again tried to convince Asura that the young man was free to return the key when he no longer needed it. Whether Asura would use the key or not, the old man didn't care because what mattered to him was that Asura wanted to take the key with him. Asura still chose to refuse the key. The old man was very surprised that, after so many offers he had made, Asura still refused to bring the key. Asura did not think the old man was lying, but he did not think he could send someone to fall into hell at will. Such an act could be an evil act. Asura had no problem doing good, but when he had to do evil, the young man was quite hesitant to do it. Asura still held fast to the principle passed down by his late mother that people who do evil will be punished by heaven. The old man understood what Asura said, while Asura himself said goodbye to go home, but his steps stopped when the old man mentioned that the killer of Asura's mother had not been caught until then. Asura turned back and asked how the old man knew about this. The old man only replied that he was just doing a little divination. What the old man said was true, that the perpetrator of murder, Asura's mother, had not yet been caught. The old man then said that it meant that heaven had not yet sent down punishment for the perpetrator. But despite hearing those words, Asura still held fast to the belief that justice would still be upheld at the right time. Asura was sure that even though the trial had not yet taken place, the perpetrator who had killed his mother would definitely receive the punishment they deserved someday. This did not only apply to the criminal who had killed Asura's mother, but to everyone who committed a crime. Asura believed that no crime would go unpunished, because that was how the world worked, according to Asura. This belief then made Asura convinced that he did not need the key from the old man, because heaven would punish all those who committed crimes later. The old man laughed and said that he thought Asura said that only for his own sake, because the old man was sure Asura would be in a desperate situation if he did not force himself to maintain his smile. Asura remained silent. His stomach growled in hunger. The young man excused himself to go find food and was no longer detained by the old man. The next day, Semitani and his two friends were hanging out. Semitani was busy squishing insects as usual, but it no longer entertained him. Some time passed, and Asura, on his way home, felt relieved when the bullying he received that day from Semitani and his friends wasn't too serious, just throwing things at him. Asura still thought it might have been due to his good deeds. He was increasingly convinced that good deeds are never in vain. Asura arrived home, but unlike usual, that day Padre did not greet him. Asura looked confused and looked for Padre when he didn't see the dog in his doghouse. While searching, Asura saw Padre's leash on the ground. Asura then went to follow the trail he found. Near the torn rope, there was also a red stain that looked like blood. And yes, it was indeed blood. Asura followed the trail until he entered the forest. At the end, he saw Semitani and his two friends, who usually bullied him there. Part of Padre's body with blood stains was visible to Asura. The sight made Asura so shocked that he staggered. His presence was then realized by the three young men. Asura went forward to see more clearly and saw Padre had died in a terrible condition, reminding him of the death of his mother, who also lost a lot of blood. Asura suddenly sat down weakly and threw up, unable to bear the sight. The bully laughed as he saw Asura's smile completely disappear. They asked Semitani what to do since Asura had caught them. Semitani ordered them to be quiet. Semitani was enjoying his actions while still torturing the dog. Meanwhile, Asura was crying. He remembered the memory of when his mother first brought Padre to be Asura's pet. Asura had considered Padre as his own family. Even when his mother died, Padre was an encouragement for Asura. Asura loved Padre very much. Enough to ask the other Semitani why he had the heart to do such a cruel thing to him. Semitani felt so satisfied. That action was now enough to satisfy him. Hearing this made Asura laugh, indicating that he was at the peak of his sadness. The other two people found it funny and thought Asura had gone crazy. Asura was still very sure that heaven would soon punish the three of them. Asura even imagined various things happening as God's punishment for the three of them, but the more he waited, the more nothing happened. Even when Asura begged desperately, nothing happened to the three cruel people. Asura wondered why nothing happened. He remembered his late mother's words that the behavior and actions of evil people would be repaid by God, while people should not be allowed to go free. Asura began to question God's law, but all he received was a punch from Semitani. Semitani ordered Asura to eat Padres. Asura was very sad and disappointed, asking how heaven could ignore something so bad. Asura thought that if the actions of people like Semitani were allowed to continue, then in the future an unstoppable tragedy would come, like what had happened to his late mother. Asura wondered why God would repay evil with silence. At that moment, Asura saw a familiar key. Asura wondered why the key was there. He remembered the old man's words that it was not just any key. Asura remembered every word the old man said. Asura then plugged in the key into Semitani's forehead, and soon a gate framed by bones appeared behind Semitani. The gate opened, and Semitani turned to look. A large hand caught him. From outside, a part of the body of a monster was visible, which caught Semitani and carried the young man inside the gate. Semitani was very shocked, but could only remain silent. The young man shed tears for a moment before disappearing into the gate. The gate closed after Semitani was pulled in. Semitani's gang looked confused, as did Asura. Asura was confused and wondered if he had just punished someone who had been neglected by heaven. At first, Asura remembered his own words about punishing someone being an evil act, but he now believed he had done something good. Meanwhile, the old man entered hell and found Semitani's pieces. Semitani was not dead, but dismembered like the insects he had previously killed. With his order, the old man put Semitani back together, and the young man no longer felt pain. However, the old man repeated the command to do it from above. A monster appeared with a long sword in front of Semitani. Semitani trembled with fear and cried. His body began to be dismembered again. The old man told Semitani to prepare himself, as he still had 1.6654 trillion years left to serve in hell. The next day, Asura went to school as usual. He heard news of another crime that morning. Asura began to think that every day, there were people like him who experienced cruelty and needed a helping hand. Asura also still believed in what his late mother had said. From that moment on, he resolved that if heaven chose to answer evil with silence, then Asura would be a helper for those in need. Asura was convinced that this was the action he had to take. From that moment on, Asura resolved to do even greater good. He would ensure this, of course, with the help of the key to the gates of hell that he wore around his neck wherever he went. That day in class, the teacher asked about Semitani, Anisato, and Kitakana, who were absent. No one knew where the 3 delinquents had gone. The students thought the 3 bullies were simply playing hooky. They also seemed to prefer class without them, as the atmosphere was more relaxed when the bullies were gone. The teacher also seemed reluctant to inquire further, and chose to continue with the class. Asura, who actually knew, chose to remain silent and only showed his usual smile. When school ended, Asura was even happier and relieved. His classmates seemed happier without the 3 bullies. Asura concluded that by doing so, he had done a good deed by sending Semitani to hell. He even intended to tell his deceased mother about it when he got home. In an instant, Asura felt the presence of the old man who had given him the key behind him, but when he turned around, there was no one there. Asura felt that the old man's actions were quite strange, but the key worked according to what the old man said. Asura accidentally looked at his right wrist. There seemed to be something that had never been in Asura's hand before. The boy thought that the mark was just a bruise, although he was also doubtful because he didn't remember ever being injured. Asura then suddenly remembered the words of the old man who gave him the key, that the old man didn't need anything from him. Asura thought for a moment that maybe the appearance of the mark had something to do with what the old man needed, but he chose not to think about it and assumed that the mark was there because he had just hit something somewhere. Asura passed through an alley and saw a girl who was trying to climb somewhere. Suddenly, the girl fell because the support she was standing on was not strong. Asura rushed to help the girl by cushioning her fall so that she did not immediately hit the ground. After falling, the girl realized that Asura was on top of her. The girl immediately apologized to Asura, who was actually not okay but claimed to be fine. The girl immediately looked in the direction he wanted to point, but was disappointed when muttered that the door was missing. Asura had heard the muttering and asked. The girl seemed conscious and tried not to make Asura cringe at her. She rushed to leave, but Asura's reaction stopped her. Asura asked what door the girl was actually looking at. Asura said that he also saw a door recently. That made the girl talk again instead of leaving. The girl opened and reached into her bag, taking out a fiction book entitled The Chronicles of Narnio. She said that the door she saw was the gate to the Kingdom of Narnio. Asura was confused about what the Kingdom of Narnio was. The girl then explained that the door she saw functioned as a connection between the wardrobe and Narnio. Narnio itself is a place where only good people live. Hearing Narnio is a country where only good people live makes Asura feel like going to Narnio too. The girl who heard Asura's words was surprised because her reaction was not like usual people. The girl said that she really liked the book and read it over and over until one day, suddenly, the door to Narnio really appeared before her eyes. Asura asked if, when the girl saw the door, she also met an eccentric man, but unfortunately, the girl did not meet anyone. The girl always tried to get into the door to Narnio that she saw, but unfortunately, the door always disappeared. When she always felt like she was almost reaching the door always disappeared. She was sure that one day she would be able to reach the door to Narnio. The girl then asked what door Asura saw. Asura, without further ado and hiding anything, then answered that the door he saw was the gate to hell. The girl looked surprised, but she was also curious about the other side of the door that Asura saw. Asura himself also did not know the other side of the gate to hell that he saw. He was only sure that the place must be amazing because it was a place where evil would receive punishment. The girl, instead of being horrified, actually agreed with Asura's opinion about how amazing the place behind the gate to hell that punishes evil is. The conversation between the two had to stop when the girl got a notification from her phone that there was one place she had to visit. Once again, before leaving, the girl thanked Asura for helping her and was willing to chat with her. Not only the girl, Asura, also felt very happy because it had been a long time since he had been able to enjoy a conversation with other people. The last time he had a conversation was yesterday when Seminani and his gang ganged up on him. Once again, Asura believed that his good deeds had made him so lucky. The girl who had chatted with Asura also felt very happy to hear his words and stories, But the joy soon ended when she arrived at the place she had to go. The girl's name was Otori. Otori received bullying and harassment from several girls who went to school with her. The girl who bullied her asked why Otori had suddenly left without her permission. Otori replied that the door had appeared and Otori chased after it. That answer made the bully girl and her two friends laugh. They were sure Otori was crazy, but so many people liked Otori's cute appearance that it made them feel sick. The girl cornered a butt on the back of Otori's hand, making the girl immediately scream in pain. They were annoyed because Otori was always considered cute. They also believed that Otori deliberately acted like a crazy person, talking about the door to Narnia that suddenly appeared. All of that was to be considered cute by the people around her. The bully girl with her two friends forced Otori to take off her clothes. She took a photo of Otori without clothes and sent it to the group. Otori had tried to ask her bully to stop, but words were just words. The bully girl who had sent Otori's photo was happy and thought Otori was also happy because the students could see Otori's tiny body clearly. Otori went home and immediately checked her closet door, but she returned disappointed because the door to Narnia did not appear there. On the dining table, there was a cup of noodles and bread as food for Otori from her mother, who could not eat with her because of work. Otori ate her food while crying, convincing herself that tomorrow the door would appear and she could go to Narnia. The next day, Otori went to school and saw that every student who saw her seemed to gossip. The stares of the students were also scary. Otori remembered that her picture without clothes had been circulating in the group chat. The girl immediately ran to the school bathroom. She was scared, but as if that wasn't enough, the bully girl appeared and ordered Otori to come with her after school. Otori was taken to meet a man who was much older than her. The man looked like a delinquent. The man claimed to be the older brother of the bully girl. The girl had shown the man Otori's picture, and yes, her brother liked it. She was even told by the girl that Otori would be willing to take off her clothes for him. It was so fun being a cute girl like Otori, the bully girl said. The girl left Otori in her brother's hands to have fun. Time passed. Otori walked down the street, staggering and disheveled, muttering that she had to find the door. She felt like she just needed to find it and get to the other side. Suddenly, the door appeared in front of her. As she approached, it moved away. The girl thought she had to get it so she could go to the side where only good people lived. Otori ran as fast as she could to catch the door, looking around. She even accidentally bumped into several people, one of whom was Asura. Otori went into a place that was under repair and demolition. There was a prohibition on entry, but Otori didn't see it and just kept staring at the door. Otori desperately wanted to leave that world and move on to a world filled only with good people. She kept walking after the door, even without realizing she had passed the no-entry barrier. Finally, the door seemed to stop and began to open. Otori's smile widened. The girl took a firm step towards Narnia, but suddenly she had to realize that her steps would make her fall. The door disappeared, and Otori began to fall into the hole. Luckily, Asura was there and grabbed her hand. The young man managed to save Otori. After being safe, Otori thanked Asura, but he also asked how Asura knew Otori was there. Asura replied that he was one of the people who had been hit by Otori. Otori and Asura's eyes looked so desperate that the young man thought maybe Otori had found the door to Narnia. Therefore, Asura followed her. Asura was very scared and shocked when he saw Otori fall to the platform. Otori was silent and began to shed tears. The girl cried with regret. If only she could enter the door and go to the other side, then she could escape from the reality of her life. Those words made Asura curious and asked why Otori wanted to escape from reality. Otori recounted the bullying that had befallen her. Asura finally learned that the girl had actually been through so many terrible things. Otori felt upset because she couldn't reach the door to Narnia. She began to think that maybe the door was just an illusion. The door only existed in Otori's mind, but it was also the only hope for Otori. Hearing Otori made Asura realize that he had the key to a door. He also resolved to do good by helping those in need. Asura offered his door. Otori still remembered that the door Asura meant must be the gate to hell. Asura said that everyone who does evil will receive punishment from heaven. The gate to hell only appears before people who do evil. Asura then asked Otori to take him to the bullies who were bullying her. Otori asked why Asura was meeting with the bullies. Asura replied that he was going to do a good deed. Otori texted the girl who bullied her, saying she wanted to come over to talk. She was told she could come, but to the place where the bully lived. Otori then went with Asura to the place, but the whole way, she kept wondering what Asura was going to do. When they arrived and entered the place, they were confronted by the bully girl and her brother. Otori seemed traumatized, so much so that just seeing them was enough to make her stomach ache. Asura gave her a drink to calm her down. The bully girl immediately accused Asura of being Otori's lover and intended to take photos of the two of them. Asura then introduced herself as Otori's acquaintance. He also said that Otori had told him about what the two siblings had done to Otori. Asura hoped he could still talk to them. The two siblings were surprised what Asura wanted to say. Asura went straight to the main topic, advising the two not to do bad things anymore. Everyone was shocked when they heard Asura's words. Asura added that bad people will definitely be punished, so he advised the siblings to behave well to receive good things too. He advised the two to be good to Otori. That way, everyone would be happy. Before Asura could finish speaking, he received a punch right in the face from the thug. Asura was thrown back, even though he was still being beaten mercilessly. The bully girl laughed, calling Asura stupid, while Otori herself looked very shocked and scared, mixed with worry. The thug finished beating Asura, and now turned to Otori. He was ready with a camera and was about to take another picture of Otori, of course, without clothes. Otori stuttered an apology for being forgiven. Otori saw that Asura was injured and wanted to help him, but the man grabbed Otori's neck and ordered her to focus only on him. Otori felt pain and tightness. On the other hand, the man really liked Otori's expression, which looked desperate. The man wanted to take a picture immediately, while his sister reminded him not to go too far. She was also waiting for the results of the photo and was about to send it to the group chat. As the situation became increasingly cornered, Asura rose without anyone noticing. By the time the man realized, it was too late. Asura had managed to plug in the key to the gate of hell into the man's forehead. Asura turned the key, and suddenly, a gate with a frame of bones appeared behind the man. Everyone was surprised. Otori could also see the door, even though she was almost unconscious. From inside the door appeared so many eyeballs that they began to approach and surround the thug. The many eyeballs slowly attached to the thug's head. It seemed like a demon's head was inside the gate of hell. Slowly, the man was pulled in. The man did not seem to want to go alone. He asked for help, and his hand grabbed his sister's arm. The girl could not release her brother's strong grip. Asura watched the two slowly enter the gate. He didn't help them. He thought the two siblings would likely cause trouble in the future, so he sent them to hell. If heaven refused to punish evil, Asura would gladly mete out that punishment. The two brothers had already fully entered the gate of hell. Soon after, the gate closed tightly and disappeared again. With his decision, Asura was confident that things would be better for everyone. Otori was still lying down but conscious. She remembered all the stories Asura had told her. The girl began to wonder who Asura really was to have the key to the gate to hell. Before she could ask, Otori lost consciousness. When she woke up, she was already in another place. Otori thought maybe what she experienced was just a dream, but when she felt pain in her neck, she realized it was not a dream. The next day at school, Otori, who was quietly reading a book, was approached by two girls, friends of the bully girl next door, who had gone to hell with her brother. They asked where the girl was because they had tried to contact her, but there was no answer. Otori was about to say that she didn't know anything, but accidentally, her lips smiled slightly, making the two girls feel insulted. Otori then said that if the two girls didn't stop doing evil, then they might end up in hell. The girls were confused by what Otori said. Otori was sure that no one wanted to go to hell, so she advised the two girls to start doing good deeds so they wouldn't end up there. The two were still confused, but soon a teacher came to ask for news of their friend. No one knew where the bully girl had gone. Otori, who knew, chose to remain silent and laughed out loud that day. From then on, Otori was sure that no one would do bad things again because anyone who did would be sent by Asura to hell as punishment. One morning at school, in Asura's class, the students were gossiping about a scary-looking transfer student who had joined their third-grade class. They assumed the student would be even worse than Semitani. They had decided to avoid him as much as possible. They also felt sympathy and pity for the third-graders who had to share a class with the scary transfer student. Before school ended, Asura took the time to go to the library to borrow the same book as Otori's. Asura was delighted that his school library had the book. He was so excited to immediately read the book that told the story of a kingdom filled with good people. Asura even wished that the real world could be like the Narnio kingdom, filled with good people. Thinking about it made Asura think of Otori. He hoped that the girl would no longer be bullied at school. While in the schoolyard, Asura accidentally saw a student's leg lying on the ground. Because he was curious, Asura then came to see. In the backyard of the school, 2 students were seen being extorted by several students who acted like school thugs. Their leader was named Kino. Kino extorted the 2 students and promised to return their money double. Unfortunately, the promise was just empty talk. One of the students threatened to report to the teacher, but then one of his friends, named Turiya, invited Kino to play soccer. Kino responded to his friend's good idea, but because they didn't have a ball, they would use the head of the student who threatened them as a ball. The student was forced to lie on the ground, and one of the school thugs ran to kick the human ball, even though their victim had said he would give them all his money. Suddenly, Asura and another student appeared there, asking the school thugs to stop. Asura and the young man were shocked. So were all of them there. Asura's identity was questioned by everyone there. The young man who appeared with Asura asked Kino and his friends, who were 3rd years, not to extort money and to be aware of their age. Kino guessed that the 2 young men who disturbed his fun were 2nd years, which meant it was Semitani's responsibility to discipline the 2nd years. Asura was quite surprised to hear Semitani's name. That meant the 3rd year, who were rumored to be backing Semitani and his friends, were Kino and his friends. The young man who came with Asura denied that he was a 2nd-year student. He was a transfer student who entered the 3rd year, the same as Kino and the others. Kino and the transfer student faced each other when Asura suddenly appeared between them. He said that Kino and the others should return the victim's money and stop doing bad things. Before Asura could finish his sentence, he was hit and thrown by Kino's punch. Kino was about to hit Asura again, but the transfer student blocked Kino's punch. Kino's other friends defended and threw stones at the transfer student, causing the young man's forehead to be injured. Kino was surprised when Asura grabbed his wrist, who had already gotten up. Asura continued his interrupted sentence, saying that those who do evil will be punished. That's why Asura advised Kino and his friends to just do good. Asura said this with a look of fearlessness. This made Kino and the others even more furious, but unfortunately, they had to retreat because of orders from a senior named Kanema. Before leaving, Turiya took a picture of the transfer student's face. He said that they would play ball another time. The gang of 3rd-year school thugs left, leaving Asura and the transfer student behind. After they left, Asura asked if the young man was okay because he saw a wound on the young man's forehead that was bleeding. The young man did feel pain, but he was more afraid that something would happen to Asura because Asura received a lot of punches from Kino. The young transfer student was amazed by Asura's courage when facing the 3rd-year thugs. The 2 then introduced themselves. The transfer student's name was Rika Tatsumiya from the 3rd year, while Asura was Asura Amashiro from the 2nd year. Asura tried to put a band-aid on Rika because the young man's head was bleeding. Rika looked at his palm and thought that he was fine compared to real blood. Asura didn't understand what he meant, but he didn't mind it. Rika returned home and was greeted by his mother, who appeared to have a head wound and a bandaged left eye. The woman was holding a hammer and was hammering a nail into the wall. She was happy to see her son home from school, but when she saw Rika's injury, she began to become hysterical. Rika's mother suspected someone they knew had injured Rika. The woman appeared very traumatized and afraid of the person in question. Rika tried to calm her panicking mother. He tried to tell her that the person in question would not know where they were now. Rika's mother didn't listen and became even more panicked, rushing to finish what she was doing on the wall with nails and a hammer. Rika wanted his mother to calm down and not worry. Even if the person in question came to find them, Rika would be the one to step forward to confront the person and protect his mother. One morning, Asura was eating breakfast with his grandmother. His grandmother noticed something unusual about Asura. She seemed to notice that her grandson was in a bad mood. Asura himself didn't realize it until his grandmother asked him about it. His grandmother reminded him that in the past, the only person who could tell Asura's mood changes from the slightest gesture was his mother. His mother knew that Asura resembled his father, so when Asura was angry, his eyebrows would furrow downwards. Asura remembered his mother's words telling him not to worry because heaven would punish those who were evil. Asura wondered why he was angry. Moving on to school, Kino and his gang's actions were repeated. The young man again stole another student's wallet. Not only from the students, their group even had the heart to rob a grandmother. Kino was furious at his target, who only had a small amount of money, not enough for him. So in the end, Kino had to beat the young man who had cowered. Kino's decreasing income made him blame Asura and Rika. Kino invited his friend to take revenge on Asura and Rika, but his friend's face looked tired and interested in interfering. Kino's friend only suggested that they do an investigation and threatened to get money. Kino agreed. Now all they had to do was find out where Asura or Rika lived. On their way home from school, Rika and Asura accidentally met again. Asura asked about Rika's condition when Rika himself felt he should be the one asking Asura. Rika was curious to see that Asura didn't seem to have any intention of going home. He asked, and Asura replied that he wanted to try to talk to Kino and the others. Rika asked for an explanation. Asura then reminded Rika that yesterday, Asura had asked Kino and the others to return the money from the children they had extorted. Asura came that day intending to find sure whether Kino and the others had done as Asura said or not. Rika asked because he was surprised. Why did Kino and the others have to do as Asura asked? Rika knew very well that people like Kino and his gang would not immediately obey the request of a stranger who ordered them to stop doing bad things. Rika warned Asura that the young man would only be wasting his time and would definitely end up getting beaten up by Kino and the others. Asura still stuck to his intention. If Kino and the others continued to do evil, then Asura would have to leave even more. Rika was shocked. Now he knew that Asura was truly a strange student. Rika decided to come along because he was worried about Asura. Asura thanked him while Rika didn't see any need for gratitude because, honestly, he did it for his own sake. When Asura and Rika were about to go to the backyard of the school, at the gate, a woman was seen trying to break in, carrying a hammer. The woman was screaming and wanted to see her son. The security guard tried to calm her down and stop the woman from entering the school area. Rika was very familiar with the woman's figure because he was the son of the woman who was raging at the gate, looking for her son. Asura was quite shocked when he found out it was Rika's mother. The woman seemed to be screaming that a man had returned, so they had to run away immediately, or at least Rika would not be allowed to go home. When the security guard asked who the woman's son was, the woman's panic attack got worse and even made it difficult for her to breathe. The security guard tried to calm the woman by controlling her breathing. Rika appeared there in front of the mother, but the image that the woman caught was not Rika, but an adult man who looked like Rika. The woman became increasingly hysterical, begging for Rika to be forgiven. Asura was there, casually saying that Rika was already in front of the woman. Rika wanted his mother to quickly wake up and look at him, but he gave up. Rika knew that by looking at him, his mother would not get better. Shortly after, a teacher and the person in charge of the infirmary room appeared. They asked what had happened to Rika's mother. Rika suspected that his mother had mistaken him for someone else. The incident was quite shocking and accidentally caught Kino's eye. The young man took a photo of the incident and thought of a plan to have fun with his friends. Rika's mother was taken to the infirmary and was much more stable than before. The school doctor wanted to give Rika's mother some space to rest, but also wanted to talk about her condition. Rika excused himself to wait in the hallway. Rika thought it might be best for his mother not to see Rika yet. The school doctor understood Rika's intentions and would call the young man in once everything was calm. Rika wasn't alone. Asura seemed concerned from what he said, though his expression remained blank. He asked if everything was okay, and Rika replied that his mother was fine. He had mistakenly thought that Asura was asking about Rika's condition, not his mother's. Rika was quite surprised. If Asura was worried about him, it was safe to say that his appearance must be very worrying. Rika didn't want Asura to worry about him. After all, incidents like that happened all the time. Asura nodded in understanding. Rika also apologized for Asura's plan to talk to Kino and the others. Rika couldn't accompany Asura, as he had said before. Asura understood the situation. Rika didn't need to apologize because Rika was supposed to be with his mother. Rika said that he could accompany Asura tomorrow. The two parted ways just like that. At the hangout, Kino showed his friends a photo of Rika's mother, who had a panic attack at the gate. Kino planned to follow Rika and his mother home so he could find out where Rika was. Now he had also thought of something fun to do. His friend was excited enough to ask. Kino planned to rob Rika's mother and break some of her by running her over. His friend was surprised. because the plan Kino said was something they were used to. It was something Teruya always asked them to do. Hearing this response made Kino feel offended. The young man felt that his friend was judging Kino as just copying Teruya's method. His friend didn't realize that Kino was offended, so he subconsciously said that because Kino had said something new, he was excited, but ended up a little disappointed because there was nothing new in what Kino said. Kino grabbed the young man's hair and intended to turn his friend's head into a living human ball. His friend then apologized and praised Kino's plan as a great plan. Kino still didn't let go of his hand. The young man offered to stand guard around the infirmary room to monitor Rika and her mother's movements. Hearing this, he released his grip and sent his friend to go keep an eye on things and let him know later when Rika and his mother would return. After the young man left, Asura came to face Kino. Without the slightest fear, Asura asked if Kino had returned the amount of money he had extorted from the students yesterday. Kino was quite annoyed by Asura's arrival. Asura didn't mean anything bad. He just wanted to make sure that Kino had done what he asked him to do. A punch landed on Asura, sending the boy crashing to the ground. Kino was furious. Why did he obey Asura's words? And what could Asura do to him if Kino didn't do as Asura said? Asura asked Kino to stop his bad behavior because every evil act will be punished. Asura asked Kino to do good things because that way, Kino will get good karma and everyone will be happy. Hearing Asura's ranting made Kino even angrier. Kino stepped on Asura repeatedly to vent his anger. Asura already had the key in his hand, while Rika apparently came after Asura. Rika couldn't believe Asura's reckless actions, even though the boy was still curled up on the ground, unable to get up because of Kino's actions. Rika also asked Kino to stop, while Kino was reluctant because he wasn't the one who started it. Kino and Rika almost got into a fight, but suddenly Asura appeared between them. Everyone was shocked. Rika was confused about what Asura was thinking. Asura was silent, but his hand had already managed to insert the key into Kino's forehead. Asura turned the key, and suddenly a gate with a frame made of bones appeared behind Kino. Rika and Kino were shocked to the point of freezing. A huge horse-headed creature appeared. The horse's head devoured Kino's head and pulled him into the inside of the door. The gate disappeared when Kino had completely entered. Asura was silent, and Rika was silent because he didn't understand what was really happening. Rika wondered where Kino had gone. Asura, with his usual expression, replied that Kino had gone to hell. Asura said that if he let someone like Kino go, he would surely cause many tragedies for others around him. Asura decided to send Kino to hell before anything bad happened. Although Rika listened carefully to what Asura said, the young man could not understand what he meant. What Asura said seemed like a fantasy story. Asura turned to Rika. Rika was speechless, especially when he saw the look in Asura's eyes. Rika was very sure that he had just seen something he should not have seen. Seeing Asura walking towards him while holding the key made Rika wary. He thought he might be Asura's next target after Kino. Rika began to think about defending himself with the principle of kill or be killed. However, he was shocked when Asura put the key back on his neck and just passed Rika. Asura even said goodbye to Rika and said goodbye to go home. After Asura left, Rika was finally able to release his tension. He was still confused by what he had just witnessed. The situation where Kino, a third-year student who was suddenly taken away by a monster and then disappeared without a trace. Rika still remembered Asura's words about hell, said only with a very flat expression. Although he refused to believe it, the incident had really happened in real life. Rika's mind was in chaos. His focus returned when he heard his name called to immediately go to the infirmary room. In front of the infirmary, the school doctor met Rika. The woman told Rika that his mother was feeling better and recovered, but she was still very alert and seemed afraid of something. Rika's mother looked through the crack in the door and recognized Rika this time. She asked about someone's whereabouts and hoped that the person in question wouldn't come looking for them all the way to school. Rika tried to explain to his mother that they had moved from their old residence. They had moved a long way from city to city, even changing their cell phones twice. It was quite impossible for the person in question to find Rika and his mother so quickly and easily. Even though Rika had explained this, her mother was still convinced that the person in question had been chasing them, even disguised as a delivery person. His mother thought that perhaps the person in question had been waiting for them at home. Rika tried to calm his mother down again, saying that if that person did appear, he would be the one to face him and protect her. His mother was silent for a moment, but she doubted her son. Rika could not possibly win against the man his mother feared. Suddenly, Rika's past flashed through his head. The memory of young Rika witnessing his mother being beaten black and blue by a man, as well as himself, made Rika tremble. Although afraid, Rika could not choose to be afraid. He still had to protect his mother. The two then returned to their residence, very carefully. When they entered the house, the place was empty, just as Rika had said. His mother still did not believe it. Rika offered to check inside first, but it was unnecessary. The man they feared appeared behind them. The man seemed familiar to Rika and her mother. He asked why the mother and son were late. Both of them wondered with terrified faces how the man could be there to find them. The man was only looking for the two of them. He never thought he would have to go that far to find his wife and son, who had run away. The man Rika's mother was so afraid of was her own husband and Rika's biological father. Rika's father only said a few sentences, but his words were enough to make Karen, Rika's mother, immediately kneel and beg for forgiveness. Rika's father tried to get his wife to wake up and was about to invite his family back. He also brought a box of cakes to enjoy together as a family. The man gave the box of cakes to Karen, but because the woman was too scared and trembling, she accidentally dropped the cake. Karen suddenly felt extremely scared, while the man felt the cake he brought was not appreciated by his wife. The man stepped forward to teach his wife a lesson. He would always be by his wife's side, so he could correct her arrogant attitude. Rika stepped in front of his mother to protect Karen. His father warned Rika to move away, but the young man did not budge an inch. Moreover, the man's target was to be taught. A good child should always listen to their father. Because Rika was not like that, he needed to be taught a lesson for Rika's good. His father advised Rika that as long as Rika always did what his father said, Rika would grow up to be a man who cared deeply for his family. His father was sure that Rika would grow up to be a strong and virtuous man like himself. His father was willing to do whatever he could to teach his wife and children, even though his behavior had caused deep trauma to Karen. Asura prayed at his family altar and told her about Rika in the photo of his late mother. Asura felt something new with Rika's appearance as a third-year transfer student at his school. Asura said that Rika helped him when he was trying to reprimand Kino. At that moment, Asura was amazed because it was the first time someone else had helped him. Asura was sure that Rika was a good person, and that good karma would surely come to the young man. However, what Asura said and predicted did not happen. Instead of good karma, Rika continued to receive abuse from his own father. Rika tried to protect his mother, who was beaten badly because she tried to run away with Rika from her husband. Rika's father was very easy to beat his son and his wife's left eye. He even made it unable to function, and it was caused by Rika, who was reckless in calling the police to report his father's cruel actions. Rika wanted to explain that the reason they acted like that was because of his father's actions, which were too cruel, but before he finished his sentence, Rika's father beat his wife again as a form of warning to Rika that a good son should not talk back to his father. Rika screamed for his father to stop beating his mother. His father turned to his wife and warned the terrified woman to obey him so that Rika would not have to be beaten by him. The head of the Tatsumiya family even emphasized that if Rika and Karen continued to try to say that he was a bad person, he would force the mother and son's hearts to change. He didn't care how much pain he caused his wife and son. He would gladly continue to teach them until Rika and Karen could understand. The man again invited his wife and son to return to their home. He was also confident that he could change Rika into a good man and love his family like himself. He was sure that the apple wouldn't fall far from the tree, so that Rika would not be unlike him. The next day, Rika returned to school, but with his face plastered with so many plasters and bandages. His facial expression was serious as he wondered how his father could find their whereabouts. The answer he was looking for was not found, so he turned to another problem that needed a solution. Whatever the method, Rika intended to run away again with his mother, but he was still confused because his mother was in such a state of fear that it was impossible to ask her to run away. Rika had thought about involving the police, but he decided against it because he understood his father's character very well. If his father found out that his son was trying to get rid of him, then his mother would definitely be tortured. The only solution he could think of was to run away, but no matter how far they went, his father would desperately search for them as long as the man was still alive. They had to keep running away unless one extreme solution began to emerge in Rika's head, eliminating his father. If his father disappeared, he and his mother would no longer need to run and hide. Maybe his mother would live peacefully and happily. They would no longer live in fear. Raiko intended to eliminate his father, but his hands were shaking violently. Suddenly, while he was trying to calm himself, another young man from Kino's gang appeared, asking Raika about Kino's whereabouts. Raika didn't want to talk to anyone, but the young man forced him and even threatened to beat Raika. Without hesitation, Raika landed a punch right in the young man's face. Raika hoped his father was as weak as the young man, so he could easily eliminate him, but unfortunately he was not. Raika was about to hit the young man again, but the crowd of students in the hallway distracted him. Suddenly, Raika remembered his father's words about the apple not falling far from the tree. If Raika acted cruelly, he would be just like his father. Raika let go of the young man's hand and warned him not to bother him again. He turned to go to his class in annoyance. While passing the toilet, he accidentally met Asura. The two exchanged greetings, although Raika was still in a bad mood. Asura was worried to see Raika's face covered in wounds, but before he could say more, Raika warned Asura that he was not in the mood to talk. Raika continued walking, but remembered the key that Asura had around his neck and the words of the young man he had beaten earlier that Kino had not returned since then. Raika turned to Asura again to ask about the key, but he had difficulty conveying his intentions. Raika felt that he needed the key. With it, he could send his father to hell. Unconsciously, Raika hesitantly said that he wanted to borrow the key. Asura asked Raika what the key would be used for and what happened. Raika was about to tell his story, but the school bell rang, signaling the start of class. Asura was an obedient student, so as soon as the bell rang, he excused himself to enter the classroom. Raika was stunned. He went forward to snatch the key from Asura's neck, but the action was only in his mind. He let Asura enter his class. Raika was honestly still confused and unsure of what he was thinking. However, he was also quite certain that the key could be the solution to his problem. Raika only needed the key to the gate to hell that Asura had.